Join me as I take on the challenge of handling disrespectful people like a modern Stoic. Let's see if I can keep my cool and stay composed. In the theater of human existence, we inevitably encounter those who test our dignity, challenge our worth, and disregard our boundaries. These encounters are not mere inconveniences, but profound opportunities, crucibles in which our character is either forged or fractured. The ancient wisdom tradition offers timeless strategies for maintaining inner sovereignty when confronted with disrespect. Let us explore 8 pathways through this common human challenge. Number 1, the indifferent opinion bearers. They surround us daily. The colleague who dismisses your ideas without consideration, the acquaintance who interrupts constantly, the family member who belittles your choices. You recognize them by their casual disregard, their subtle, undermining comments, their assumption that their perspective inherently outweighs yours. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. Marcus Aurelius. These individuals create a persistent erosion of self-worth when we permit their judgments to penetrate our inner citadel. Their casual disrespect, the eye roll during your presentation, the conversation they redirect after you speak, the advice they offer without understanding your situation, can infiltrate our self-perception if we grant it authority. The Stoic approach begins with the fundamental recognition. Others' opinions exist entirely outside our control. Epictetus reminds us, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. When someone disrespects you, separate what belongs to you, your response, from what does not, their behavior. Practice the discipline of perception. See their disrespect not as a statement about your worth, but as a reflection of their internal condition. Marcus Aurelius advised, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This is not cynicism, but preparation. Furthermore, consider the source. Ask yourself, would I seek this person's advice on important matters? Do they demonstrate wisdom in their own life choices? If not, why grant their disrespect any authority over your peace? Remember that it is we who torment ourselves, that no one else can torment us. It is only our own opinions that harm us. Epictetus, number 2. The status climbers. They appear in every social hierarchy. The networker who engages only until discovering you can't advance their ambitions. The friend whose warmth correlates directly with your recent successes. The family member who treats relatives differently based on perceived social standing. These individuals calculate human worth through external metrics, wealth, position, influence, appearance, and calibrate their respect accordingly. You recognize them by their shifting attention at gatherings, their selective memory about commitments, their subtle name-dropping and status comparisons. The damage they inflict is insidious. They create environments where human dignity becomes conditional, where worth must be continuously proven through external achievements. Their presence fosters insecurity and perpetual striving for validation that can never truly satisfy. The Stoic response begins with value clarification. Seneca observed, "It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who hankers after more." When status climbers withhold respect based on external measures, we must firmly root ourselves in what truly matters: virtue, integrity, wisdom, justice, courage, moderation. Practice indifference to their metrics. When they dismiss you for lacking status markers they value, silently affirm what Epictetus taught. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Your worth exists independent of their recognition. Maintain appropriate distance without hostility. The status climber's game requires your participation. Decline to play. Engage when necessary with courtesy, but without investment in gaining their approval. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Marcus Aurelius. Number 3. The boundary violators. They manifest in all contexts. The relative who asks intrusive personal questions despite your clear discomfort. The co-worker who volunteers you for tasks without consultation. The acquaintance who makes jokes at your expense and labels you too sensitive when you object. Boundary violators operate from entitlement. They believe their desires, curiosity, or convenience naturally supersedes your comfort or autonomy. You identify them through their persistent dismissal of subtle cues, their tendency to create situations where refusing them appears unreasonable, their skilled deployment of guilt or social pressure when challenged. Their impact extends beyond momentary discomfort. They gradually condition you to question your right to self-determination. The colleague who enters your office without knocking, the friend who shares your confidential information, the partner who makes decisions without consultation. Each instance erodes your sense of agency. The Stoic approach begins with clear internal boundaries. Musonius Rufus taught that philosophy is not merely theoretical, but practical. We must apply wisdom to daily actions. Establish first in your own mind what constitutes acceptable treatment. Then practice direct communication without emotional escalation. State boundaries factually. I don't discuss my finances in social settings. I need to be consulted before. Commitments are made on my behalf. That type of comment doesn't work for me. Should violations persist, implement consequences calmly and consistently. Limit access to your time, information, or presence, not as punishment, but as natural protection of what you value. Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" Seneca. This practice of voluntary discomfort prepares you to withstand the social pressure boundary violators often deploy. When you know you can endure temporary discomfort, enforcing boundaries becomes easier. Number 4. The credit thieves. They operate in workplaces, creative collaborations, and even family systems. The colleague who presents your ideas as their own, the team member who minimizes your contributions during presentations, the sibling who rewrites history to center their efforts in family achievements. Credit thieves fundamentally misunderstand the nature of true accomplishment. They believe external recognition holds more value than the internal satisfaction of genuine contribution. You identify them through their strategic positioning near success, their careful management of who knows what, their subtle language shifts from you to we to I as ideas gain traction. Their behavior creates environments of distrust and competition where collaboration becomes impossible. The co-worker who interrupts with, "As I was saying earlier," when you share an original thought, the supervisor who presents your analysis to leadership without attribution, the friend who subtly reshapes the narrative of a shared accomplishment. Each instance diminishes the collective potential for genuine achievement. The Stoic approach begins with clarifying what truly matters. Epictetus reminds us, "Make it your study to live unknown." True value lies in the action itself, not its recognition. When someone takes credit for your work, remember that the development of your capabilities, your knowledge, skill, and character remains yours, regardless of attribution. Practically speaking, create documentation trails where appropriate. Share ideas in settings with multiple witnesses. Distribute written summaries of your contributions. These actions aren't about securing recognition, but about maintaining factual accuracy. Most importantly, continue producing excellence without becoming preoccupied with credit. Marcus Aurelius advised himself, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." Does another do me wrong? Let him look to it. He has his own disposition, his own activity. I now have what the universal nature wills me to have, and I do what my nature now wills me to do. Marcus Aurelius. Number 5, the chronic critics. They appear in every sphere. The family member who finds fault with every achievement, the colleague whose feedback never includes positives, the acquaintance whose conversation consists primarily of identifying others' shortcomings. Chronic critics operate from a fundamental insecurity. By diminishing others, they create an illusion of elevation for themselves. You recognize them by their immediate focus on flaws rather than merits. Their disproportionate emotional investment in others' perceived failures, their resistance to acknowledging progress or improvement. Their persistent negativity creates a corrosive environment that dampens initiative and stifles growth. The parent who meets accomplishments with "you could have done better," the supervisor who only discusses what went wrong, the friend who questions your capabilities before you begin. Each interaction plants seeds of doubt that can bloom into self-limitation. The Stoic response begins with accurate assessment. Epictetus taught, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This humorous approach acknowledges that criticism may contain partial truths while removing its emotional sting. Practice selective attention. When facing chronic critics, extract anything potentially useful from their feedback while discarding the destructive delivery. As Seneca noted, "The bee draws honey from flowers that we reject." Even in misguided criticism, valuable insights may hide. Finally, maintain appropriate distance. The chronic critic's perspective represents just one viewpoint among countless possibilities. Their assessment carries no more inherent weight than any other unless you grant it special authority. How much time he gains, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself to make it just and holy. Marcus Aurelius, number 6. The passive aggressors, they operate through indirection. The colleague who agrees to deadlines they silently resent. The friend who says, "whatever you want," while sighing heavily. The family member who complies with requests while ensuring everyone witnesses their martyrdom. Passive aggressors lack the courage for honest communication, but harbor too much resentment for genuine acceptance. You identify them through their disconnected verbal and non-verbal messages, their tendency to express anger through withdrawal or forgetting commitments, their creation of no-win situations where either compliance or confrontation seems problematic. Their behavior creates a fog of uncertainty where straightforward navigation becomes impossible. The partner who says, "I'm fine," while clearly upset, the team member who sabotages projects through minimal compliance, the relative who agrees to plans, then creates last-minute complications. Each instance undermines the foundation of honest human interaction. The Stoic approach begins with radical clarity. As Seneca advised, "Let us say what we feel and feel what we say. Let speech harmonize with life." When facing passive aggression, maintain your commitment to direct communication regardless of their strategy. Acknowledge the disconnect without accusation. "I notice you agreed to the deadline but seem uncomfortable with it. Would you prefer to discuss alternatives?" This approach offers an opportunity for honest engagement without escalation. Should the pattern persist, adjust your expectations accordingly. Accept that this individual may be incapable of straightforward interaction in their current development. Limit dependence on their commitments and create systems that don't require their emotional authenticity. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. Number 7. The emotional vampires. They drain vitality from every interaction. The acquaintance whose problems constantly require your immediate attention. The colleague whose dramatic crises always escalate just before important deadlines. The friend whose emotional state becomes your responsibility regardless of context. Emotional vampires use others as regulatory systems for their internal states. You identify them through their disproportionate reactions to minor setbacks, their tendency to make others responsible for their feelings, their skilled extraction of emotional labor without reciprocation. Their presence creates exhaustion and boundary erosion. The family member whose mood determines holiday gatherings, the co-worker whose personal crises must be managed alongside professional responsibilities, the friend whose fragility prevents honest communication. Each relationship gradually diminishes your capacity for genuine connection elsewhere. The Stoic response begins with emotional independence. Epictetus reminds us, "Make it your study to be able to say to every harsh appearance, 'You are but an appearance, and not absolutely the thing you appear to be.'" When confronted with emotional manipulation, maintain internal separation between their feelings and your responsibility. Practice compassionate detachment. Acknowledge their emotional state without absorbing it. "I understand you're upset about this situation. What steps are you considering to address it?" This approach offers support without assuming responsibility for their emotional regulation. Establish energy boundaries. Determine in advance how much time and attention you can healthily provide and maintain these limits consistently. Remember that enabling dependency ultimately serves neither party. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Epictetus. Number 8. The contemptuous superiors. They appear in hierarchical structures. The manager who speaks condescendingly about your level. The wealthy relative who subtly references your financial constraints. The established professional who dismisses newcomers' perspectives without consideration. Contemptuous superiors confuse circumstantial advantage with inherent superiority. You recognize them through their casual deployment of power differentials in non-relevant contexts, their tendency to mistake experience for wisdom, their resistance to learning from those they perceive as below them. Their behavior reinforces artificial divisions and prevents the free flow of valuable ideas. The supervisor who begins feedback with, "At your career stage, you wouldn't understand." The established family member who dismisses younger generations' insights, the veteran who belittles newcomers' questions, each instance diminishes collective wisdom by restricting its perceived sources. The Stoic approach begins with accurate assessment of true value. As Epictetus noted, being born into wealth or position doesn't mean that they know what is good and what is bad. Circumstantial advantages, age, wealth, position, education, deserve neither excessive reverence nor contempt. They simply exist. As preferred, indifference. Practice respectful autonomy. Engage with those in position or power without surrendering your dignity. Acknowledge their formal authority where relevant, while maintaining your internal authority over judgments and values. When possible, redirect interactions toward merit rather than status. Focus discussions on ideas themselves rather than their sources. Ask questions that invite genuine consideration. I'm curious how this perspective addresses specific challenge. You can bind up my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. Epictetus. Number the path. Forward, these 8 challenges represent not merely difficulties to endure, but opportunities to practice the most fundamental human freedom, the choice of response in the face of provocation. When we encounter those who don't respect us, we stand at a philosophical crossroads. One path leads to reactivity, meeting disrespect with anger, withdrawal, or desperate attempts to prove our worth. This path may feel temporarily satisfying, but ultimately surrenders our internal sovereignty to external triggers. The alternative path leads to responsibility, the capacity to choose our actions based on principles rather than provocations. This path requires greater initial effort, but yields lasting tranquility and unassailable dignity. As we navigate a world where respect is not always freely given, let us remember that our task is not to ensure universal recognition of our worth, but to live in a manner worthy of our own respect. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This is not merely ancient wisdom, but practical psychology. The person who maintains dignity in the face of disrespect demonstrates a strength far more compelling than any reactive display. By responding to disrespect with principle rather than emotion, we not only preserve our peace, but often earn the very respect initially withheld. The ultimate victory lies not in changing how others treat us, but in remaining unchanged by their treatment, standing immovable in our commitment to virtue, regardless of external recognition or its absence. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius.